everything is hard when you've never seen something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about Kwargs, and then we'll try to see how we might do it from the school interface. So let me bring up so we're in a coding window. Okay, so we're just going to talk about Kwargs first and kind of understand what Kwargs mean. Again, they sound kind of weird. I'll keep that around. Let me make this bigger. And this. Okay, so let's talk about Kwargs. I'm going to create a Kwargs file. Let's call it kwargs.py. And of course, I mistyped this. So what are Kwargs? Kwargs stands for keyword arguments, hence the KW and then args. So let's put that Kwargs equals keyword arguments. All right, normally we deal with args. Args equals arguments, otherwise known as parameters for functions, for classes, or whatever. All right, so arguments, you guys hopefully are kind of familiar with arguments, even if you don't know the terminology there. Arguments are what we pass to a function. So let me create a function. Let's say def my function, make it fun. And this will take in some arguments. So if I do like, let's keep it generic, A and B. Let's just say this will print out A and B. All right, so my function takes in 2 arguments. Those arguments names are A and B. That's what I chose to name them. Obviously, we have full control where we name our arguments. If I call my function, obviously I will pass those arguments with values. So let's say x equals hello and y will equal world. All right, hello world, and then so I'll call my function by passing in my values, so x and y. Again, these are just variable names. They don't have to match the variable names of the accepting arguments. So again, I call these x and y. I can call them whatever I want. They're just variable names, right? So if I run this, obviously that shouldn't be too surprising. Make that a little bigger. No, too big. I'll run Python and Kwargs is the name of the file. All right, so notice we get hello world out here, and hopefully that didn't surprise anyone. If that did, we might need to talk after this and make sure we understand Python. But again, these are arguments, but they do have names. The name of this argument is A, and the name of this argument is B. Right? What if I swapped my input? So if I swapped Y and X, so now that I'm passing in world here and hello here, what's going to happen is, again, these are positional. So arguments are by position. Let me add that, by position, which means since Y is first here, it's going to match up with the first argument here. Right? And then X is going to match up with B. So if I run this, obviously those words should switch now. We get, we get world hello. Right? Because those swapped, because I swapped the inputs. Now, the idea of keyword arguments is that you can make them agnostic to position. As in, if you, for whatever reason, don't really want to care about position. And one good example is, let's say I had 50 different arguments. They might be kind of hard to keep track of. So if I didn't want to screw those up, we use keyword arguments. And that means you're targeting a specific argument by name, hence the name keyword. All right, so this ignores position. And when we say position, we mean position of arguments on the receiver. All right, so this is a function receiving the arguments. We're going to ignore the position of that. The way we do that is via keyword arguments. So if I do A equals Y and B equals X, a little bit of funny syntax here, but what this is saying is the keyword A, sorry, the argument A should accept this value. Sorry, I think I screwed this up. Yeah, this should be and A. Right? So what this is saying, name B here is going to accept Y. Even though Y is being provided first here, we're specifically saying B should capture this value. Without this, again, without having keywords, they're positional. So Y maps to A, X maps to B. But now if we did want to control it, I could say B equals Y and A equals X. Right? So now the position doesn't matter at all. If we added a third argument, we could still do this too. So let's add Z here. Let's call that Papa. Platoon. So we could set C equal to Z. All right. Maybe if I want to make this a little more clear, let's call this first, second, and third. Hopefully people understand that I'm choosing these names. It's not going to be something magical. And then we'll print third, type, second, and first. All right, so again, these are named my variables, so then I need to add those here. So let's say I put first here, and then maybe second here, third here. So again, we're not relying on position. We're specifically saying, I'm telling you which arguments on the receiving side are going to match up to my inputs here. So if I ran this, we should still get hello world pop-up Platoon. All right, so we got hello world pop-up Platoon. Again, without this, question? Is there a question? Maybe I misheard something. But yeah, so that's the whole idea of keyword arguments. We short form the name of that to Kwargs. So again, funny sounding name, but that's what Kwargs are. So hopefully that just demystifies
quick
it a
question.
little bit. Yep.
Well, if you were to remove the second equals Y or the first equals X for just one or two of them, then how would it handle the positioning of them?
That's a great question. Let's try it out. So let's give first here, and let's not give a name to Z. So the question is, will Z automatically map to third? Because we already mapped this, but it looks like I got an error here. It says positional argument cannot appear after keyword arguments. So it is possible, but it looks like that you had to do it left to right. So I can leave out first. So let's say I want first to be X. And then I could do, let's say third is going to equal Z. And then second is going to equal Y. All right, so these two are out of position, but this one is in the correct position, so you don't have specified. So it's similar to default parameters. I know we've maybe touched upon default parameters, but when you're creating default parameters, you always have to do it at the end. So if I want third to default to something, then I could do that for the last one, but I can't do a default parameter here, default value, without doing it for second. So you got to do, I guess, default parameters from right to left. As in, you can leave them off the rightmost values, but you must do it for, if I do it for, this value, then second must have a default value also. And that's a little off topic here, but again, it's the same kind of idea here. So again, if you want to use Kwargs, you got to do that right to left. As in, you can leave off Kwargs from your starting ones, or I can leave off my middle one if I wanted to. But then I would kind of make this example kind of pointless.
Hunter, what's the reason for that?
The reason? I know the reason for default parameters. I'm trying to think why it might be for Kwargs.
Could you take third equals Z out of there and then make take second equal Y out of there, leave third equals Z, and it will just not, well, it won't work there. But if for instance, you had the default parameter and you only wanted to pass some of the starting parameters, but you wanted to skip some of the ones that are already defaulted.
Yeah, so you could do that. So if you had default parameters here, I could do something. So yeah, this is specified values for first and second in opposite orders. Third is going to default to this, so we don't have to specify third. Again, remember in Python, you must specify all required arguments. This is not JavaScript, where JavaScript will just be like, all right, you didn't specify, that's cool, I'm just going to mark it undefined. Python requires them, so in this case, it should work. Yeah, we get hello world something, because we did not specify what the value of third is, so the value of third is going to default to our default value here. Okay, good questions, but yeah, so let's kind of just focus on the Kwargs part. Hopefully default values kind of make sense to you, but if not, we can cover them. So third is going to equal Z. Again, I can't just leave this off, just that's the way Python is. I can't specify Kwargs before args. Args must come before Kwargs. Okay, so in this case, I'll say third equals Z, even though Z is in the right position, you still got to tell it where to map to because you did so for the first two. All right, so that's the idea of Kwargs. How does that matter? Why does that matter for our use case purposes right now? Well, let's talk about the next thing. Let's create a dictionary. So I'm going to say blah equals, and this could be my dictionary. Let's add some entries. I'm going to add, let's go, I will equal Michael Robertson. What's your favorite food?
I'm a favorite what? I'm sorry.
Food?
Favorite
Food item, something to eat.
food, watermelon.
Watermelon, excellent fruits. Who else do we have out there? I feel like there's definitely some of you guys I haven't chatted with recently. Chatted with some of you guys. Let's go with Kana. Kana, what is your favorite food?
There we go. Ice cream.
Ice cream, excellent. I love desserts. I love sweet food. I have a big sweet tooth, so fruits and desserts, definitely all of them. Who else have I chatted with? Scott. Scott, what's your favorite food?
Hamburgers.
Hamburgers. All right. Seems like we got a nice meal forming here. Hamburgers. All right. So I created this dictionary. Now, let's say I wanted to pass values to my fun function using my dictionary. Well, one way I could do it, and this is probably the way most of you guys are familiar with or would expect, from my fun function, I would do blah, which is, let me just name it foods to be a little more appropriate, because naming variables appropriately makes sense. All right, I'll do foods, and then I'll do index I, or not index I, but key value I. This is a dictionary, not a list. I'll do foods J, and then foods K. Foods K. All right, so again, hopefully everyone kind of understands how dictionaries work. We pass it a key. The key is on the left side here, and then they'll extract the value. So we should be passing watermelon, ice cream, and hamburgers to my fun function. Let me get rid of this example. All right, so my fun function, just printing out these values. Let me run this. It's going to be Python, up arrow, Kwargs. All right, so notice we have watermelon, ice cream, hamburgers. That's cool, that works. But if I wanted to swap the order, we could do the same thing like we did before. So let's say, I'll make this, let's reverse the order. So I'll make this third, I'll make this second, and I'll make this first. Right? Again, these are the names of my inputs here. So maybe I should have named it a little different. So, hopefully no one gets confused that these aren't magic words that I'm adding. These are names of variables that I'm matching. So if I ran this, obviously we should reverse our list. There we go, we get hamburgers first, then ice cream, watermelon. Right? But there's a slightly easier way to use dictionaries and get Kwargs out of it. So this is where we're going to use the spread operator. I think Guillermo mentioned that earlier. Instead of doing that, I can call my function. And then the special syntax here is use double star, double asterisk. Right? You use this in conjunction with a dictionary. And what this essentially is doing is breaking apart your dictionary into key and value pairs. Right? So your dictionary already has keys and values, right? I is mapped to watermelon, but if you can, like this is the way I visualize it. I'm not sure if this is technically what happens. If you do the double operations and then apply that double star and then apply it to the foods dictionary or a dictionary, this is called a spread operator, and you're spreading apart your dictionary. So instead of being this group of key value pairs, you're essentially making that into, let's say, I and watermelon. You're breaking it up like this. You're creating separate bundles. I'm not sure what to call these intermediate items, but let me finish writing this out to both top and type. So K equals hamburgers. So again, the the spread operator here is going to take your dictionary and break it apart, and you're going to be left over with just key value pairs kind of floating off in space. They're not tied together in any manner. But the reason that's useful for us is because if I do that in a function call, now we're going to get Kwargs generated. So this is the same thing. Actually, sorry, I am confusing. I am doing this incorrectly. So what this will do is break my dictionary into keyword kind of pairs. So I will map to watermelon. However, this is not going to work the way I intended because you need to kind of match your variable name. So right now, what this would be doing if I wanted to write it out, let me borrow this line code. That was not what I want. All right. Let me copy another line of code. That's not going to be proper syntax. All right, so what I've done now is done this. Hopefully you guys see where I'm going, and I'm going to slow it typing here. Oh boy, all right. Okay, I think I should copy that. All right, what we've done with the spread operator is essentially do something like this, where we get I equals watermelon, J equals ice cream, and K equals hamburgers. All right, so that's what effectively our spread operator has done for us. However, this is not going to work. Susan, why do you think this is not going to work? And it's okay if you don't know, but
I'm not sure.
okay, that's fine. Let me maybe delete some code. All right, so the reason this isn't going to quite work for us is because we've mapped our arguments to keywords I, J, and K. However, my function is not looking for I, J, and K. My function is looking for a first, second, and third, because those are the names of the variables. Okay, so again, we've made keyword arguments, but these keywords don't exist in the receiving function. So this would, if I ran this, I would get an error most likely. Yep, notice we get unexpected keyword argument of I, because I'm saying I equals watermelon, but there's no I here to accept that value. So the way I would fix this is in my dictionary, I would call this first, second, and third. So this is the important part when you're using the spread operator. You need to match the arguments by name. So the name of this key has to match the argument that I eventually want to map to. Now, this does not have to be in order. Like I could put second here, I could put third here. Again, these are just names of my values. So these are my keys. The names of your keys must match the names of the arguments you intend to use as keyword arguments. So now when I use the star operator or the spread operator, I'm going to get something like second equal watermelon, third equal ice cream, and the first equal hamburger. All right, so that's the same thing we were doing before. Notice here, we're just extracting values out of the dictionary and assigning them to the keywords. But since if you have a dictionary that you're designing this, you're the one developing it. If your dictionary has matching names, then you could simply do a spread operator, and that should allow you to print out or pass values automatically. So again, I assume most of you guys would agree this is much easier than having to write code like this or this. It just kind of automatically works. I wouldn't say magically, but just conveniently for us. So if I run this, put an I somewhere. Oh, these keys these no longer exist. I've renamed them. So let me fix that. So we'll do third is ice cream. No, third is third. Second is second. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so if I run all three of these lines should print for me. Oh my gosh. All right, so notice we got a bunch of output. because the first line, again, we get the same output for all three. It's just three different ways to do it. One way is the, again, the way you guys probably are familiar with, where we have a dictionary, we grab the value out of a dictionary and we could assign it to our keyword arguments. Second way is the quickest way, where we break apart the dictionary and we automatically get keyword arguments out of it, because we get these kind of like bundles kind of floating in space that get inserted. The third line is essentially what's happening on the second line. The third line, I've just done it manually, where I said, I give the keyword and I give it the value, which is from my dictionary anyway, but I'm not getting it from the dictionary. I guess I could use my dictionary there too, but yeah. So again, that's the whole idea of using Kwargs with dictionaries. It makes it much easier. Now, to wrap this up, why are we kind of introducing this? Well, if you guys remember from Tom's lecture, there is a way to use dictionary reader from CSV files. And if the names of your class variables are the same as a CSV file, it makes it super easy. Now, I'm not going to code up school interface from scratch here, but I do have it downloaded. So give me one moment. CD challenges, CD OOP school interface. School interface one. All right. CD school interface one. Code this up. All right. There's my VS Code. Shift that over here. And hopefully, again, I actually haven't checked my code here. Hopefully I use Kwargs. Let's see, person. Okay, it looks like I've not used Kwargs, but let's actually modify my code. So again, it's gonna be kind of hard to follow everything I've coded up, but high level, I'll walk you through it. I have my runner file that doesn't do anything too special. This is my high school that I went to. We have our four modules here, or classes. We have the person class, which is my base class. So person is going to be storing name, age, password, and role. Hopefully you guys came across this also. My school class, which doesn't have anything too interesting. It's just storing a name of the school. And then my students and staff list, which I will load from the student and staff classes. And then if we look at the staff and student classes, we are using inheritance. So hopefully all of you guys use a similar design. So the person class has the similar information, staff has an employee ID, and students has a school ID. I know someone made the comment of like, well, they're both IDs. Why do you need to store them separately? That was a fair comment. I forget who made that comment, but I would thumbs up, agree with your analysis there. Anyway, I have this load method in my base class. My load method is opening a CSV file using dictionary reader. And currently I'm just using an array and passing that here. So notice my input here is a dictionary. This is not the traditional input we'd expect. And again, let me actually change this. So instead of doing this, I want to accept name, age, password. And I think I know why I didn't use Kwargs here, but I'll try to use them anyway. And then we'll do name, age, password, and role. Again, I think I have something in my mind that might make this not work, but here I'm simply going to call class and do the spread operator. All right, so line data should be a dictionary. Let's print that out just for good measure. Line data. All right, so this is a dictionary. I'm spreading it apart, and so then these values can be captured. The only problem here is if I look at my CSV files, the student has school ID. I think a problem with my design is that there's no school ID here. That school ID sits up here. So let's actually, sorry, up here. Let's fix my params dictionary here. Let's make that name. And while I'm typing, please ask questions because I know I'm going kind of quickly. Password, age, password, what was the last one? Role. Role and school ID. And then likewise.
Anchor, I have a question.
Yep, please ask.
Like, The class method syntax right there, and when you use CLS,
Yep.
when is that preferred over just declaring an instance and just like an instance method? Like, why is that better, or when is it preferred?
Good question. I will get to it in a moment, but remind me if I happen to forget. Role, and then this would be employee ID. All right, I'm going to walk you through what I'm attempting to do. So basically, before I was passing a dictionary as my parameter. Instead, we should be passing individual values, and I know I might have to refactor a lot of this. So employee ID goes there, student ID, school ID goes here. All right, the whole reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to use Kwargs. Before I was not using Kwargs, I was kind of cheating, or not cheating, but passing a dictionary and checking values like that. All right, so let's go to my person file. So to answer Guillermo's question, he was asking, why am I using CLS here? This is a class method. A class method does not have an instance that it cares about, an instance that it can refer to. This class method can be called, again, as free as I want to, meaning here, I don't have an instance. I'm calling the class and I'm calling load all students. So again, I don't have an instance of a student. I'm just saying, hey, load all students, and I'm calling that from the student class. So my student class, again, is a class, it's not an instance. So the CLS is referring to student here. All right, so if I go down to my person class, I'm using CLS here. So when student class call this, CLS is going to be student. However, my staff class also uses load all persons. So in the case when I call load all persons from my staff class, CLS is going to refer to staff here. All right, so depending on who is actually calling the base class, if staff's calling it, then staff is going to be used here to create a staff object. Otherwise, if student's calling it, I'm going to create a student object here and append it to my output. I know, again, you guys are probably a little confused because I've made my code really generic. Again, this was my goal of reducing redundancy. So both my student and staff classes, when I'm loading the data, both of them use this logic here. And the CLS makes it generic. So again, I don't have to specify if I need to create a student instance or a staff instance. I don't have to really know or care. CLS will know depending on who's calling this method.
It's similar to super. That is very slick.
Yeah, it's like similar to super. It is also similar to self. Well, self refers to the instance that's calling a method. CLS refers to the class that's calling this method. All right, so let me try running this. I bet 90%, I'm pretty sure I'm going to run into some errors, but let's try it. I need runner files, so Python, and I know we're hitting 5:30, so I'll wrap this up in the next couple minutes. Oh, that actually worked without errors. So I'm surprised. So what actually happened here? So let's break it down step by step. So students has 5 fields in it. Notice that the key thing here, and this is what I was highlighting earlier, the values here must match the names of the parameters in your classes. So again, I have name, age, role, school ID, and password. Notice in my students initialize method, I have the same exact values here. The ordering does not matter though. So let's say I want to put password last. Again, this should not matter because I'm using Kwargs now. So the order of these parameters do not matter, but the naming does matter. So again, I'm going to say that again, just to be super clear. The names of my variables in my init method must match the names of the header of the field headers in your CSV file and for you to use this feature. If you don't want to use this feature, then it doesn't matter what I just said. Like if you want to have password, let's say I want to call this awesome password as my parameter. Well, if I want to do this, I can't use Kwargs anymore, meaning I'm not going to change all these values, but I can't use this method. This method is convenient, but requires that your field names match your variable names in your init method. So if I ran this, let's see what happens. Notice I get an error. Got an unexpected keyword password, because password is the keyword argument I get from my CSV file, right? It got password. Every time I call an instance, like with Jesse, password is going to equal this. So to me, password equals this value, and that's my Kwarg for that student record. But since it couldn't match up password to anything, because I, for whatever reason, wanted to use awesome password, this doesn't work. There's no way around it. Aside from doing it just the manual way that most of you guys are familiar with. But now if these match, again, super simple. My dictionary reader reads in the data here. So using dictionary reader, I get a dictionary. That's what file data is going to be. It's going to be a dictionary with your data from your CSV file. And all I had to do is double star against that dictionary, and it automatically works. When I say automatically, just kind of keyword arguments kind of make it much easier. So again, this is slightly easier. You might not want to do this method. That's totally fine. You can do it. There's like 2 or 3 different ways you can do it. You can kind of just use a reader object and get an array, extract values out of that array, and then create your objects. You can use dictionary reader, get a dictionary, and fish out the values by the keys and pass them in. So what I mean by that is I can do something like name equals line data square brackets name, right? Because name is going to be a key in my dictionary because that is a field. So I can do this. Sorry, I keep going to my wrong file. I can do this, get the name. I can also get the role, the password, all the other fields, and then pass them in manually, like we did before. Name, password, role, etc. Right? But again, I think this is simpler when you just let your dictionary do the work for you. And that's the benefit of Kwargs. Okay, that was a lot to take in, but hopefully something made sense. Definitely explore. I know one group I was talking to said for their staff class, they did it with a regular reader object and use an array and grab the values that way. For their student record, they tried it with a dictionary and using Kwargs, or we're trying to use Kwargs. So yeah, definitely change it up. Definitely get practice with both and see which one you like better. Any questions about what we went over here?
I had a quick question about the dictionary reader. It outputs a list of dictionaries, right? And that's what we're accessing with the for loop, right? So we're going through each of the entries in the list, each of which is a dictionary, and then we're pulling off the key value pairs. Yes.
So yeah, line data is a dictionary. Sorry, file data is a list of dictionaries. Essentially, I might have misstated that.
No,
Yeah, so
it's fine. I just want to make sure I'm understanding exactly what the output is so that I know how to kind of manipulate it later on.
I mean, yeah, technically speaking, file data, again, we're talking about OOP. Dictionary reader is a class. We're creating an instance of a class. So file data is technically an instance of dictionary reader, but for all intents and purposes, dictionary reader is essentially a list of dictionaries. So yeah, that's why we are able to kind of iterate over it and we get dictionaries back. So yeah, you can just imagine it's a list of dictionaries, but technically speaking, it's a dictionary reader instance. Just like when you create a student, that's a student instance of your student class. Well, this file data is a dictionary reader instance of the dictionary reader class.
Okay. So if you were to try to access an entry in file data kind of directly by using like the bracket, like if you just type file data bracket 0 or whatever, would that not work because it's not quite a list, but it's similar to a list?
That's the thing. I'm unsure. Like it might work because it might have properties similar to a list, but I've never tried. So we're going to find out together. And yeah, it's not subscriptable. So arrays or lists are subscriptable where you could use an index value, but the dictionary object does not support square brackets. So that's, again, a distinction. But again, it's something that you can iterate over. So that's the main important part.
Right. Okay. So you can iterate over it. You just can't quite treat it like a list. Thank you.
Yep. No, great questions. Glad you asked. Again, I didn't know that either. So I found out you can't do that with dictionary reader. What other questions you guys have? Okay, I assume that a lot of you are still kind of digesting everything we just went over. I'll post this as soon as I can. So I'll close the Zoom room and upload it to YouTube. It'll take a little bit of time because there's processing for Zoom and YouTube. But hopefully some of that made sense. If not, again, we'll get more practice with it because we got school interface 2 tomorrow, 3 on Monday, 4 on Tuesday. So you get a few more opportunities to kind of mess around with this application. Try to use Kwargs, try to just learn the new concepts. I know it's kind of like, it's easier to stick to what you're familiar with, but again, the only way to kind of learn is to push yourself and try it out yourself. So even if you fail trying, at least you tried, right? So with that, I'll pause. Any last questions out there? If not, we can wrap up here.